You honestly have to think outside the box or ponte trucha, like find ways, because like I said, I'm very much entrepreneurial and I will always find a way and make a way. I always say I thrive anywhere I go. So
Mhm.
that's how my parents always taught me to be, es trucha, tú encuéntrale, tú ráscale, tú haz lo que tienes que hacer, but don't limit yourself. Don't think that, there's only one way to do it. There's so many ways to do it. And yeah, I'm here to just help in any way that I can.
Hola, hola. Welcome to the Viva la Mami podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Cuevas. And on today's episode, I am so excited to have the one and only Karina Wright. She is an awesome influencer at this very moment because, as part of the Mamis Abroad series, I am very excited to have her here because she is also a Latina who is currently living outside of the United States and really did something radical with her life. Through her platforms, she is not just like sharing the day to day kind of like life and her new vida in Mexico with her husband, but also just all of the amazing tips and tricks that people can do to find remote work while living abroad. So, Karina, I am so excited to have you here. You have no idea how thrilled I am to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself? We kind of gave like an overview spiel of you, pero if you can tell my listeners a little bit more about yourself in terms of where you currently live, where you grew up, your family, y toda la cosa.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Mexico City, de la Ciudad de Mexico. Soy capitalina. My whole mom's side and dad's side is from there. So long, long history of us being in Mexico. And when I was just a baby, I was brought to the U.S. and I grew up in Arizona my whole life. So that's all I really knew. But I had strong roots back to the motherland. And I always had a desire to come back to Mexico. I always felt the need and just desire to be back in my homeland, but I didn't really know how I was going to go about it until I, finally planned it. I made, small strides to that goal, and we finally were able to make it a reality. And then moving out here, I just started posting. I want to say about a month after we moved here, and then it just kind of blew up from there. And I had so many people messaging me, commenting, asking me questions like, "How did you do it, Karina? Like, yo también me quiero regresar, but I don't know how to do it." Like, so that's honestly where it all stemmed from, the whole social media thing. And the key thing that I help people with is finding remote work. So income, I think that's the number one factor that people that stops them from moving back to Mexico. So I help in that aspect and just tell people how I did it and just empower them through technology, through education, through furthering their career so that they don't have to be limited to just being the States. They can travel anywhere.
I love it. I love it. And you've definitely created a big community of like folks who are seeking that type of opportunity. And we'll definitely talk a little bit more about that. But at first, like, I kind of want to take a couple steps back. And you mentioned that, you've always thought about moving to Mexico and you found ways to do it. Like, how did you moving to Mexico really shape you? And kind of like your perspective about now going back to the motherland.
So we've learned a lot from moving back. It's one thing to hear about it from, our parents, our abuelitos, our tios, of like how life was in when they're reminiscing about Mexico, but it's another thing to actually live it yourself. And it hasn't always been rainbows and butterflies and pretty, there's been some struggles, but that's what makes it beautiful is just learning as we go. So it's really shaped us, and we've actually gotten closer, because we've had to rely on each other to learn and grow as we're navigating life here. So we've definitely got closer. We're very happy. We feel like a sense of peace and just more like relief, I want to say. And we're actually going to be moving to Mexico City in a couple months. Right now, we're in Puerto Peñasco, Sonora. So we're going to go back to like my hometown where I was born. So I'm super excited about that.
Oh, that's so exciting. I love La Ciudad de Mexico. That is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how will that transition be from like moving from is it like a border town where you're currently at?
Yeah, it is. Girl, it
Okay.
is a whole, like, whew, it's a journey. It is not easy
Yeah.
because, okay, Puerto Peñasco, a lot of people ask, like, why did you decide to go there? How did
Mm.
you get there?
Hmm.
And it's honestly proximity to Arizona because it's only a 3.5 hour drive from Puerto Peñasco, aka they call it Rocky Point as well. But it's Puerto Peñasco, Sonora to Phoenix, Arizona, and everything that we know, and everybody that we know is in Arizona, including my parents, my sisters, cousins, everybody. And so we still wanted to be within close proximity to Arizona, and in case we needed anything, we could go back like same day, drive there and back. And then years ago, actually over 3 years ago, we bought this condo here. I bought it as an investment property. And
Nice.
because we would travel here so often on vacation, I have like distant relatives that have bought land here and built their homes here from scratch. So it just felt like second nature to just come here. And it was a good like landing spot, I want to say, to help smooth the transition between life in the US to life in Mexico. And but now being here, um, it is beautiful and we love it, but it can get a little bit boring. I want to say that. We don't have any malls, we don't have any airports, we don't have like, concerts, we don't have like a lot of things. It's more like a sleepy little beach town, and it's cute, and I love it for that. But we definitely miss the city. Let's just say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I'm glad that you took kind of like these little baby steps, right? Like from that initial 1 month like stay that you had to now, like it almost seems like everything is made kind of like on purpose, right? Like you're very intentional with this whole process because now that you're fully integrated in living in Mexico, like now you're looking into the future and now progressing into a different chapter of your lives. And I love that porque oftentimes, especially people from our community, they tend to just like put themselves in the situation where they feel stuck. And it's because of the limited mindset. They just limit themselves to dream and imagine into something just like different and radical, and especially when we become adults or when we get married or when we have a family, we just become so accustomed to just like the mundane and just like not trying to strive and do something different. And so what would you tell like a Latina specifically, because these are my listeners here and viewers, what would you tell her to just like dream big and like consider other opportunities that perhaps it's kind of in the back of their mind, but they're not willing to just like proceed? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I would just say definitely don't be scared. Don't let fear paralyze you. It's normal to be scared. It's normal to be nervous and, to not be sure about taking that leap of faith. But I always say to my son, I tell him with any new journey that he wants to take on, I'm like, fail faster, honestly.
Mm.
Like, get it out of the way because that is how you're going to learn,
Mm.
by making mistakes, by falling, by failing. So, the faster you fail at it, the faster you're going to get better. So, de que tiene, if you fall on your face, if you make a mistake, if you have to start over, like, that is how we learn. So don't let fear paralyze you into making those steps that you want to take, into going to that dream place, to getting that dream job. Just fail faster, you will get there sooner. So yeah, don't
Mm.
let fear paralyze you.
I love it. And I
Hmm.
think, it's just putting that good example on our kids and even like our parents too. Because when, I can only speak on my in laws porque they're the ones that have that mindset of like still believing that Mexico is like an impoverished country. And I get it because they had to flee their country out of survival. And now with us, like, we have that privilege, but we also, it's a part of that dream that our family always wanted to achieve, right? In terms of us choosing where we would want to go and where we would want to stay. And so I think that is also inspirational to also be that example, I would say, especially for our family members that limit themselves too, and also believing that, no, pero ¿por qué te vas a Mexico? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of
Yeah.
the things that, I don't know, like, I believe that there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings about our comunidad, that they still see it as like, ¿qué? ¿Te vas a Mexico? Like, what? And so I don't know if you had any reactions with family members, friends, colleagues. I don't know about your
Definitely.
husband's like family too.
Oh
How did that look
yeah,
like?
we definitely have, you know, those comments and doubts from family members, from friends, community members, and but I would just say definitely don't let people's opinions just stop you from doing what you want to do, because everybody's going to have an opinion no matter what you do. If you stay, if you leave temporarily, like, todos van a decir algo, you know? So why not just do what you want, what makes you happy? So, and I understand the dynamic, because at first my parents also were a little like hesitant. They were like, you know, they were like, because yeah, like they like you said, they fled the country during a time that they needed to, por de necesidad, no nada más por gusto,
Mm,
and I had to tell them, like, Mom, a lot has changed. Ya no es el mismo México de 20, 30, 40 años. Ya ha
mm,
cambiado mucho. There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of changes. And, you know, you got to give it a chance. And just like there's good and bad areas in the US, there's good and bad areas in Mexico. So
yeah.
it's not a monolith. The whole
Mhm.
country is very diverse. There's so many different areas and states and climates and everything. So, you know, el que busca va a encontrar, and if you find a way, you can make a way. And now my parents are going to be joining me in a couple months.
Nice.
So they were able to, like, you know, open their eyes a little bit to that, and realize that, hey, it's, you know, there are opportunities now, and that it's not like it was. And yeah, so definitely don't let people scare you.
Mm,
And don't listen to the news all the time, because there's a lot of fear mongering, there's a lot of misinformation,
mhm,
and there's a reason why they don't want you to leave the US, because they still
mhm.
want you to pay them taxes to Uncle Sam. So, um,
Yep.
you know, we can really go there. But yeah, like, I would just say, you know, see it for yourself and talk to people who are actually here. And we've been here for almost, in April is going to be a year, so we're going on a year, and I honestly feel happier, safer, healthier, better in many ways here.
Yeah.
So yeah. Mhm.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Yeah. And considering just like what's going on in the US, ¿verdad? Like, we left in July, from Chicago to León, Guanajuato, and the timing couldn't be perfect, to be honest. Like, and a lot of people were like, oh, since this, I don't mention this man's name, like, para mí el trompudo no existe, you know, it's not even worth mentioning.
The orange man, the
Yes, the orange, the
tangerine,
Cheeto, el todo, ¿verdad?
el diablo.
Uh-huh. Yep, that's true. Pero a lot of people like thought that that was kind of like my reaction, our reaction to flee the US. And I was like, no, like, you know, it, there, you know, we had talked about this like months ago, and in fact 2 years like prior, we also stayed in Mexico for a month during my husband's parental leave, because he was able to split like the amount of weeks that he was given. And so when our baby was like 8 months, like, you know, he was able to take that time off. And so we came here for like over 4 weeks, and we fell in love with it. And we were like, oh my gosh, what if we do end up like moving to Mexico? And so every single like step that we took moving forward, we decided to leave. But now that I think about it, I'm like the timing couldn't be perfect for us to just like not be in the US right now. And especially as a family, like I also feel safe here. My kids feel safe. Like my kids are being kids. Like
Mm-hmm.
their childhood is so much different than America's children right now, pero también it's so different than the way that we grew up too. Because even though we grew up in the 90s, right? Like um we were kind of in that generation where you couldn't be outside for too long, porque después something can happen. And growing up in Chicago, like you had to be street smart, and so and now my kids can just like be outside like literally every day. Like we don't even have a horrible, like our winter right now, the winter here in Mexico is like spring for us right now, especially coming from Chicago. So I think it's also seeing it from the other side and just allowing yourself the opportunity to, just like dream big, I think, and kind of doing it for your family, for your own health. And I think in the status right now that the US is in, I mean, honestly, like I've received so many requests and questions and DMs about like, I also want to move abroad. Like I also want to move to Mexico. And so obviously this is a big leap that many families take, that many people take. But for you, Karina, like what was one of the hardest parts in your transition personally that, that made it kind of difficult, and what ended up being easier than you expected?
I would say the hardest part about it was facing the fact that I wouldn't be right there with my family anymore,
Mhm.
like close to them, because we're so tight knit. Así somos los mexicanos. We're very like cercanos, and for birthday parties, quinceañeras, bodas, like everything, we see each other. Once a week, basically every weekend there's a party. So just facing the fact that like I wouldn't be there as much with them, I think that was the hardest thing for us. um and and especially with my son, like I grew up or my son grew up with me being a single mom.
Mm.
And up until later on, when my son was like 14, 13, no, 13, that I met my now husband. So for 13 years I was a single mom, and my parents were like his second parents. Like
Mm.
my dad was like his dad figure. So not having them together, I think, was the hardest part for me to like face the fact like, hey, they're not going to be down the street anymore. Hey, we're not going to, just be able to get up and go any day. um so that was a challenge, but honestly, um, it was good for us in a way, and it's kind of difficult to explain it because I don't want it to be like, oh, but she's happier without us. No, it's not that. But it definitely challenged us in a way that was good for us in the long run.
Mm.
Like we proved to ourselves we could do it, like
Mm.
without the help, without the physical assistance, without dependability or codependence from anybody. Like just branching out on our own and realizing like, hey, we can freaking do this thing.
Mhm.
Like, and we're not that far. Yeah, 3 horas y media. But to us, that's far.
Mm.
And so I think that was the hardest part for me. But once we were like maybe a month to 3 months in, without physically being there, we're like, hey, like we're doing the damn thing, like we're
Mhm.
doing it. And I feel like so empowered and so just
Mm.
resilient and strong. And then also it became a learning lesson for my son. And I told him, instead of approaching it with fear, I approached it as a challenge. Like,
Mm.
hey, we're going to learn something different. And it's going to be, you're going to get to practice your Spanish more. You're going to make new friends. You get to explore a new town. You get to see new events, new food, new people. Like, this is so exciting. Like, so I think that's another thing as well that people have the fear of is, with their children or traveling or moving with small children, how are they going to do it? And I always tell them, you know what? Kids are more resilient than us. Kids are
Mhm.
so strong. And like, yes, it is something to consider. Obviously, you want to move with care, but at the end of the day, like, I think it's made us stronger. And it ended up being a positive in the long run.
Okay, so I didn't know that your son is a teenager. So how was that transition? Because you have no idea how many moms reach out to me and they're like, "Oh, I want to move to Mexico, pero my kid is this age and it's going to be so hard for them. Like, I can't move because my kids already have their friends or my kids already in school. So can you kind of like give us some tidbits about that and your opinion about moving abroad with your teenagers?
Yeah, so my son is 15 and a half. He's almost going to be 16.
Wow.
So he needs to get his driver's license soon, which I can't believe it. Um, so yeah, he's huge. He's like over 6 foot tall. He looks like he should pay taxes by now. But está bien grandulón, and I'm so proud of him. He's such an amazing kid. But yes, I get the same question as well. A lot of just like, he's my kids are teenagers or they're in high school, or like I don't want to rip them apart. And
Mm.
um I know that this is gonna sound like harsh, but my kid didn't have a choice. Like, yo aquí mando. And I was like, I know what's best for you. Like, at the end of the day, I am the parent,
Mhm.
and along with, my husband. And we know what's best, and we do everything that we do for you and to
Mhm.
better our family. And that's like putting it in a funny way, pues nosotros mandamos, but at the end of the day, we do know what's best, because I know for a fact that we lived in fear, not knowing if dropping off our son at high school was the last time I would see him
Mm.
due to a school pew pew. And,
Mhm.
and not knowing, like, with the deportations going on and the raids, if that was the last time he was going to see me, just being racially profiled.
Mhm.
The amount of car accidents and road rage that there is in Arizona specifically was insane. Like, my nervous system was always up here. So I can't be a good mom in that environment. I can't flourish and I
Mhm.
can't reach my potential, and neither can he. And so, we moved, and it was hard, but at the end of the day, like, it's only made us better. It's only made him better. He's made so many friends now here. He goes to, because he's a fighter, he does MMA. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, so he joined a gym here. So right away we found a community where he can, like, dive into and make friends. And so right away he made friends, and his Spanish is like so much better. Like, he's ordering by himself the foods, he's talking to his friends in Spanish, he's talking to little girls in Spanish, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you, but watch out. But yeah, so like at the end of the day, we made the decision that we
Mm.
know is best for him, aunque le duele. But thankfully, my son received it in a good way. He was like the first one to pack his bags. He was like, I'm ready, I'm excited. Like, because we approached it to him in an exciting, challenging way rather than with fear.
I love it. Oh, I love it. I keep thinking of that commercial back in like, I don't know, when I was like a little girl. It was la mamá que decía, es por tu bien, and I think
Yep.
and I think, yeah, we're just being the mama bears and and I think that is a big influence for me also, that we did this move because of our kids, for them to have like I said, a different childhood than we did, but also for them to really be proud of who they are. Because nowadays, like, the USB canceling everything, history, books, like everything. And so I'm like, no, what a better way to just like fully immerse your kids into like the motherland where their ancestors come from, y toda la cosa. So kudos to you. Like, that's amazing.
Yes, thank you. You as well.
Yes. So let's shift our conversation to the thing that I consider you like an expert in, and that is remote work and really how to empower Latinas to consider this, because again, we often think pretty limited when it comes to that, or people just freak the hell out. They're like, well, I can't leave my job, like, there, I have no other options. And I've shared this in another episode with my husband in our Living in Mexico series as part of the podcast. And we shared that there are ways to find employment, there are ways to make money. But with you specifically, like, you focus on the remote work life aspect. And so, yeah, just share like what really inspired you to like, shift your content into this as well. And in creating a community on Discord, which I'm a part of, guilty. So yeah, can you tell us like what inspired you to do this.
Yeah, so I think it started because it was just like a frequently asked question. People are like, "How did you do it? You know, how can I do it?" And I would just always say like on my TikTok, like, "I'm going to spill the tea. Like, I'm going to tell you how it is, no gatekeeping, you know." Because I think it's so important right now to not gatekeep, to share and to support each other as much as possible, especially with what's going on, you know, with the deportations, with the raids. Like, people need to find realistic, actual options to be able to move and come back and repatriate to the homeland. So that's really how it started. It's just a lot of people asking me questions, just wanting to know how I did it. And then also me sharing like specifics. Like, I was getting into the nitty gritty of like, you know, I'm using a VPN. Like, so what? Arrest me. Like, you know, some people are like, how dare you? This is not ethical. And oh my goodness, it is not safe. And I'm like, ma'am, let's not talk about ethical right now. You know
Mm,
what's going on. People are like, you know, being unalived for just existing.
mm,
I don't want to talk about ethical. Like, if we still live in a society where billionaires are still becoming billionaires off the backs of people, like, don't come to me with ethical. So
mhm.
I'm just very much like a community advocate first, and just about mi gente. So any way that I can help them, I will. And yeah, I just started sharing like how I did it, and then also the bumps in the road, because it's not a straight line to success. That you're gonna have, it's trial and error, figuring out what VPNs work, figuring out how to tailor your resume to find a specifically remote job, you know, using your resources like ChatGPT. Do what you got to do. So I've shared like at times even like, hey, I got caught using my VPN. Like, who wants story time? And I would tell people like, what happened? I got fired, you know. But hey, your girl bounced back, and I ended up getting two remote jobs. One that pays in Mexican pesos, and one that pays in USD. So I'm
Yes.
very much dual citizenshiping to the max. And yeah, so it just became with, it just started off with me genuinely telling my story, not gatekeeping, spilling the tea. And then a lot of people just, the la necesidad de la gente, I was like, whoa, I was blown away by the amount of people that would message me, and just like they needed resources. And that's why I was like, I'm very much an entrepreneurial. So if I find a need or a demand for something, like, I'm gonna figure it out. So I
Mhm.
started doing an ebook, I did a workshop, and I always try to make it affordable as much as I can, but at the same time respecting my work and the time and
Mhm.
dedication it takes to provide these resources. So very much like, you know, I try to balance that line. And yeah, like for my workshop, I have a pay what you can basis. So literally anything $1 and up is acceptable. So I
Right.
don't want money to be the reason why people are not getting the resources that they need. So yeah, it just came out from that, and I'm always gonna be a community advocate first before anything.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And I think it's a really cool way to, keep a community of people that are kind of in the same boat as you were, as far as like living in Mexico, being a dual citizen, being eligible to work in either countries. And what I specifically love is that you are now supporting entrepreneurs who are either self deporting or being deported, and they need assistance with additional help. Can you kind of explain to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So as part of the resources that I offer, like for example, like I mentioned, the workshop. I created a 1 hour workshop, and I did a live presentation, and I recorded it so anybody can have access to it. And I share basically all that you need to know when coming back. How to get your INE, how to find remote work, housing, and even the mental load that it takes to
Mhm.
coming back. So I said a little poem or letter at the very end to everybody in the meeting, and I was like, hey, as much as this is like logistics, it's also mental and emotional, and like nobody talks about that toll of coming
Mhm.
back. And so you know, just guiding them through their journey back. That's my workshop. And then I also have, as you mentioned, the Discord where we share remote work. And nowadays, there's so many scams, girl. There's so many, like, who I have like 10, more than 10 accounts on TikTok impersonating me. So if anybody knows about scams, it's me. I know. And so that's why I created this, like, specific space outside of social media, outside of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, where people know it's a safe space and we monitor it, we keep it safe. We only share remote work positions that are legit, not scams, not Bitcoin, not crypto. Not MLMs or anything like that. And so that's another resource that we provide as well. And in there we have different channels with resources for resume help. And we now offer the service to be able to revamp your resume, because a lot of times people are just like, hey, Karina, I'm applying, and I'm not hearing nothing back. 9 times out of 10 it's your resume, and people haven't updated it in like 10 to 15 years, and it's like a lot has moved, a lot has shifted. And so we try to get people to stay updated and maximize their opportunities to get remote work, both either with whether it's a USA job or a Mexico job. And then I also have an e-guide if somebody wants it on physical paper, where they can find resources on moving back, the documents they need, and everything in between.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I think it's amazing porque, like you said, there's a lot of scammers. There's a lot of just like things that you find online that really take advantage of like people. And especially when it comes to our community where, for the most part, we're being intentional in our move to Mexico. I think for us, it's like you said, like we are repatriating. We are wanting to get back to our cultural roots, the motherland and where our family came from. And for others, it's because out of fear, they're returning back, but they don't know where to go from here. And I love it that your community is very intentional. Like it's like our people, if you will. Whereas when you look at other bloggers, other influencers or content creators, like como te diré, it's very gatekeeping in a way that it's for those that come out of privilege and they want to be expats. And I hate that word.
Me
Um,
too.
and their purpose is just to have this luxurious life. And when it comes to those different types of communities, what makes your like Discord and your community unique to the other communities that are just like giving resources to expats that are just kind of trying to colonize our countries? But just saying.
Yep, that part. Say louder. Yes, it's a very difficult, girl, because it's very much like I've struggled with this. I've really gone back and forth because I'm like, I could really make so much money, so much more money, if I just really like, coached people and gave like courses to like anybody and just, anybody and everybody. But my audience is specifically, and I always say it, is specifically for Mexican citizens who are coming back and their families who are coming back. And either through deportation, voluntary relocation, or just self-deportation. So I'm not here to, live that expat life, or I'm not here to help them or further their agenda or anything. And it's been really hard because I'm like, damn, like what am I gonna do? I'm gonna ask them to like, see their birth certificate when they buy my course, or like, it's been like, how do I do this? So it's been really difficult, and I still struggle today, like, because I'm trying to move with care, but also like, I'm not trying to be gatekeepy, but also at the same time I understand the consequences of people who are not of this land to come here and gentrify, or to bring the same type of hate that's found in the US to Mexico. So it's like I don't want to contribute to that, and I've been very open and vocal about that. I even made a video kind of not viral, but it got traction, and it was of me crying because I was like, oh my God, where do we fit along this? And I don't know if you felt like that because I'm like, pues soy mexicana, pues tengo sangre pues indígena, I'm like, of this land. And I'm a Mexican born citizen, but I was raised in the States. And the fact of the matter is the culture is different, whether we, want to accept it or not. And coming back was my Spanish, si tengo acento, and people could tell, like, oh, esta chicana, or whatever they want to call me.
De la gabacha.
Whatever, esta gringa, or whatever. And so it's like, where do we fit? And I think that's where it comes in of the whole saying of like, oh, no somos aquí, no somos allá. But I'm like, somos aquí y de allá. And so trying to like spin that in a way where we take back our power and don't allow people to tell us where we belong, allowing that to be something we claim for ourselves. So I'm curious to see if you've experienced that or how you feel about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've shared this and was this pretty viral video about people have told us that we are gentrifiers, but this came from, for the most part, people that are not from Mexico. But then again, the comments say otherwise. Like it's just a mix of reactions, a mix of opinions. And yeah, that put me thinking a lot. Like, and I had this episode in conversation with my husband who was on the show for this whole series, the Living in Mexico, that, are we really gentrifying? Pero I think that it all just depends on what part of Mexico you end up living. Like we live in León, and León is it's notoriously known for old money. Like it's a very wealthy city. If your family came from advantages and you are obviously like a trust fund baby, like that's how I imagine people here in my like age range. Like they're like, oh yeah, they're like the trust fund babies back in the US. And so technically I don't believe that we are gentrifiers porque first of all, my parents came from a rancho, like in Guanajuato. Like they came from nothing, and there's reasons why they had to flee their country to go to the US and prosper and in some level of prosperity. Like I'm not saying we're hella rich. No, we're not. And so now we're in this neighborhood where they're like, oh, our next door neighbor's a dentist, the other one's a doctor, a surgeon. And I'm like, well, I'm first gen. Like, I barely made it through. But hey, guess what? Like, I'm earning USD and I probably make the same amount of money as you do. And so it's so complex, and it's so, I don't know, it just, when you really think about it, like I go into like this clusterfuck of like my thoughts just running through it, but at the end of the day I'm like, no, like I deserve to be here, my family deserves to be here porque somos de sangre mexicana. And first of all, we don't speak English outside of this like home because we got to respect our language también. We have to basically assimilate to la cultura too aquí de Mexico, which is very different. Not to mention government offices and bureaucracy is so different, and that's something that we need to abide to. But like, yeah, it's such a, I don't know, it's so complex. And I always welcome those kind of comments y toda la cosa, because it's interesting whether if they really know the true Mexico and whether if they know my story. And yeah, I welcome that criticism and everything. But at the end of the day, there was a purpose and reason why we came here. So I don't know what you think. Yeah.
No, definitely get it. I definitely understand. It is a whole like just mess, and just so many dynamics, so many layers to like peel back, and just it's a lot. But at the end of the day, like what I will say is the only hate I've ever received about being a bocha or a no sabo or something is online. Never in person has anybody come up to me and be like, ay, tú, señora, eres una pocha. Never. No. Like, never have I ever experienced that in person. Like, if anything, like, they love us here. Like, we've made great friends. The restaurant owners where we go to all the time. Like, everybody has just been nothing but the maintenance people, like, the repairmen, like, whoever. They love us, like, to the core. and they don't see us any different. And if anything, they'll be like, oh, pues tú enséñame un poquito más inglés y yo le enseño a tu esposo español. And then, like, cotorreamos, and we have a great time. So it's like,
Yeah.
we have to remember there are a lot of, like, bot farms and a lot of, like, bots that just are in the comments just trying to add, like, disagreements and discussions.
Yes.
And
Porque no
so
tienen
I
vida.
think, no, yeah, or they're just like bots. So yeah, like, I just have to remember that, like, at the end of the day, the internet's the internet, and, like, real life in person is what matters. And I try to protect my mental health as much as possible.
Yes, absolutely. Amen. Amen. Yeah, we can't focus on them because, yeah, at the end of the day, like, we know our reasons and, purpose in terms of why we made the decision to leave. And I love it for you too. Yeah, and then you've been very outspoken, especially considering today's times and just helping the community. I really appreciate that about you. I have a question specifically about, like, for a mama that's thinking about making this shift. Perhaps they're like, okay, well, maybe I have a specific goal in moving by such date with my family, but perhaps the one thing holding her back is, like, a job and finding money. What are some realistic steps they can take in making this move a reality?
There's so many ways you can approach this, actually, because there's obviously the typical, like, 9 to 5 that you can find remote work, which is what people typically gravitate to, and they want that, like, job security, which is totally understandable. But there's so many other ways to make money as well. I think that we're just taught that that's the only way, but there's not. There's also 1099 opportunities, like contractor positions that you could take on. And I prefer that, actually. It provides more flexibility. But if you want to just start somewhere from scratch, is definitely keep your resume updated. Like I mentioned, we offer those services. So if anybody needs those services, you can email me, and we offer them very affordable, literally like $20. That's it. We're just
Girl.
here to help. Yeah, it's like, we will help you, and we're definitely trying to help the
Amazing.
community. So yeah, definitely, if you need resume revamp services, let us know. And then also, you honestly have to think outside the box, or ponte trucha, like, find ways, because like I said, I'm very much entrepreneurial, and I will always find a way and make a way. I always say I thrive anywhere I go. So that's how my parents always taught me to be: es trucha, tú encuéntrale, tú ráscale, tú haz lo que tienes que hacer. And yeah, and like for example, when I got here, social media just, I started posting, and then I started getting deals, brand deals, in person. Like, I did videos for insurance company here in Mexico, who were seeing my videos, and they wanted to expand their audience. So that, I worked with real estate agents. Yeah, just till today, like, we get brand deals and stuff. So there's ways you can make money through social media, just by negotiating, just going in person and saying, hey, do you guys need English classes, or hey, do you guys need assistance? There's so many ways to go about it. So you can either make money on your own and become a business owner, which a lot of people do here in Mexico. Everybody, their mom has a business. So, you can do that if you want to do that, or if you want to get a 9 to 5 or do a 1099 contractor, you could definitely do that as well. But don't limit yourself. Don't think that, there's only one way to do it. There's so many ways to do it. And yeah, I'm here to just help in any way that I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll make sure to share all of the resources that you offer, so that my listeners and viewers can directly click on those links, because you offer just amazing amount of resources, and just, like, the community that you're building. I mean, I think I was, like, one of the first few people, and then bam, like, it just grew, and it's amazing. It's amazing. So kudos to you. Yeah, and I really love this advice. I think it's in our blood, right? To, like, hustle and to find ways to, put food at the table. Like, that's just who we are. Y una señora aquí told me, aquí en México puedes encontrar lo que sea, o puedes hacer tu propio negocio. Si quieres vender dulces, enfrente de una escuela, ahí mismo los vas a vender porque los niños les encantan los dulces. So like, you know, I think it's that limited mindset that oftentimes it gets to us, like that scarcity mindset. And I think it's just a matter of letting that go and knowing that you're going into a different country that is more of that like positive, you know, abundance type mindset that we're los mexicanos encuentran cualquier manera, you know, and that's a way to see it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's not always, like I said, rainbows and butterflies
Hmm.
and easy and stuff, but it's so worth it. And honestly, I would do it 10 times over. And I'm just much healthier, happier here in peace. And so I rather like be here and like try to figure it out as I go than to maybe have a 9 to 5 over there, but I'm just like miserable.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's just
Yeah.
how I see it.
Yeah, the essence of time is definitely different here. Like people still work. Like it's not vacation here. Pero I think that just being in a different environment and just like the way that people move their days, like literally it's almost like that sloth where it's like, "Oh yeah, I'm like,
Oh yeah,
intuitively
time
like
moves
in my."
slowly here. And you know what? I love it though because it's just like nobody's in a rush all the time.
No.
Like it's just in like for example, you go to the tiendita and I would look it up on Google Maps and be like, oh, it says that it opens at 8. I would be there at 8, nothing's open, and I'm like. It says on Google Maps that they open at 8. Like, I don't know. And then they would stroll in like 10, 15 minutes later. Or I called. I was like, excuse me, are you guys open? And they're like,
Oh
ay,
my god.
sí, ahorita llegamos, es que tuve que pasar por el pan and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. But it's just like, you know what? I love it because it's just people take their time. Like, it is what it
Mhm.
is. And there's even a dicho about it. I can't remember, but it's something about it. And it's just a different way of living, but it forces you to just live in the present, to
Mhm.
accept like that you can't control any outward like elements, and just
Mhm.
it's just you and like in that moment. So it's definitely like let me live more in the present.
Yes. Oh, love it. Love it. Well, Karina, I have one final question for you, and that is my Viva la Mami questions that I ask my guests. How are you redefining motherhood?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would just say that I'm doing it my way. Like, I break traditions, I break norms, and sometimes people don't understand it or don't agree with it or have their opinions. But at the end of the day, like, I'm doing what makes me happy, what works for my family. And I know that specifically in like Mexican households in our communities, it's very much like, this is the way that we've done it, and this is the way that it has to be. And if you don't show up for Christmas, eres una mala agradecida, and blah, blah, blah. Like, everything that comes with it, the guilt. I'm just
Mm,
like, you know what? Like, I'm taking what works for us and leaving what doesn't.
mhm.
And that's okay to make your own traditions. It's okay to formulate your own happiness and go against the norm. So I think that's how I'm doing it.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Well, Karina, where can people connect with you or follow you if they haven't done so yet, which they should? And that way you can share folks where to to follow your journey.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Instagram, on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Karina Life in Mexico. And remember, it's just Karina Life in Mexico, no spaces, no nothing. Don't get scammed by the
Mhm.
bots because they're trying to impersonate me. So it's just Karina Life in Mexico.
Awesome. Well, Karina, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. You've shared really great nuggets, and hopefully, this can inspire many Latinas and especially Latina mamas to just like do it, to just like move somewhere outside of the US because it's not good right now. So
Thank you for having me. I appreciate all the work that you do. You're amazing as well, and I'm a fan.
oh, thank you.